Hi, I'm Mark Lowe and welcome to the Photography Academy, and today we're talking about food photography, specifically an introduction into the lay flat mode. Lay flat, basically a terminology for editorial style of imagery from above, or the likes of a double page spread magazine in the good old days and things. It's really used a lot now for the likes of step-by-step recipe books. You'll see pretty much all vloggers being using it in some way, as well as kind of food really looks great, especially when it's high-end, kind of Michelin star, etc., to really kind of make it stand out. The great thing about if you do the lay flat photography well and you kind of use the backgrounds and the lights and the actual food obviously in harmony together, you're going to end up with some great imagery. So today is really about an introduction, kind of talking about why and how, so you can get up and running straight away. So the first things first, because of the lay flat photography, kind of speaks for itself, I hope. Let me hit the live view for a minute. So basically, we're seeing here, obviously, the background is predominantly the main thing. So if I just kind of start to slide in the likes of, you know, just another background for a minute there, instantly, that is pretty much a kind of a more dramatic image, and I haven't really done anything. So again, it's really down to the stylist, the creative, and basically you as the photographer kind of putting everything together. But as far as the backgrounds are concerned, the first thing to do is don't invest a huge amount of money, because use the things that are laying around. Look in the local skips, the kitchen kind of offcuts. If you go to warehouses, old worktops, beaten up kind of wood benches from the likes of schools, and then kind of really looking even skips from old houses for more of a retro, especially if you're going to get really into a lot of food photography or product photography. I'd also invest into some coloured paper, matte and reflectives, because this will kind of instantly give you a huge range of kind of different styles and contrasts, and you can go from the likes of, you know, a summer kind of spring, making a muffin light and bright to eat, and you can instantly turn it into a kind of Christmas feel by kind of just changing those backgrounds. Paper tends to actually ripple and curl a little bit, so it's best used if you're slightly throwing the background out of focus, by raising the product away from it slightly. Otherwise, pretty much invest into the likes of card, whether it's reflective or it's going to be a matte, as you're kind of seeing here. Pretty much disposable. Obviously, the greasier the food, more throwaway, but you can kind of use these then for kind of reflectors and so on. So, look around everywhere, don't throw anything away, and basically collect all these things. As well as props, of course. In lay flat photography, it's not just the background itself that you're going to be photographing on, it's the props that are going to be a part of the set, which we'll cover in another film. Next would be the overhead, making it as easy as you can. I tend to use my studio stand when I'm working in studio. If I'm working at a restaurant, I'll usually shoot by hand, unless I'm there for days, where I'll take obviously the tripod in with actually the boom arm, like you see in here. I mean, this is as old as I am. It's been around within my kind of world of photography for a very long time. But this allows me to work, kind of being able to quickly move the studio stand away and closer up. But it also allows me to attach the normal kind of head to the actual end of this boom arm on the stand here. You can use a C-stand or even weight the likes of a lighting stand if you have one that kind of will allow you to fix a camera onto the end. Main thing when we're shooting from overhead, if you haven't got a flippy screen, and if you do have a camera with a flippy screen, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to shoot, because you're not going to have to be looking in all the time. But you want to make sure that you're tethering off to the likes of a laptop or the likes of an iPad, even, to use it as a bit of a kind of a preview. It's kind of the modern day Polaroid as far as I'm concerned. So instead of having a chef and a stylist and everybody looking through your camera lens, they can look at the laptop and get their ideas from there. To be able to tether, it's not difficult, but I would invest once, invest a little bit more. So just don't buy a normal USB cable for your camera going to whatever. I'd encourage you to invest into the Tether Tools. We've been using Tether Tools now, I think, for about 8-9 years even. It's got a little kind of jerk stopper on the side here. Not only is it a quality feed the whole time, so we don't lose imagery and so on, it also, when it connects into the camera port, it's nice and tight. And to stop any wear on there, the little jerk stopper allows you to avoid from kind of pulling it out by mistake. I tend to use two Tether Tool the cables together. So one end goes into the computer itself, yes, and then the other end would go into my Canon camera. That's the male end of the jerk stopper, and basically the other end is attached to the camera. That stops it kind of pulling apart. But the shuttle here, in fact, good advert for Tether Tools there, of course. But basically, this is the shuttle, and this is where the connection is. So by joining the two USBs together, the male and the female end, basically it stops them from being pulled apart, especially when you're working fast with people kind of coming in and around your small kind of studio space. It kind of stops any real damage being done. Another thing to use, especially when you're overhead, is a cable release. This is the Canon version, but there's third-party ones to work with your camera as well. And this basically just allows me to not put any kind of camera shake through the camera because I'm leaning over the top or I'm pressing the actual trigger button itself with it. So that alone is worth it, especially if you kind of just want to go, okay, I just want to move that one away just a little bit more, and then basically take another shot with it and things really, and you can kind of see as you go in. So it saves you having to get in close. Fix the focus point is key, of course. Lens-wise, I either use 100 macro or a 50mm by design. I prefer to use a prime lens rather than a zoom lens. I love my 24-105, and I love it when I've got a big set, but it's very old now, and it basically starts to drop down in its kind of zoom mode and things really. So during the course of the shoot, guaranteed, if I should be in a very wide angle, gravity will naturally kind of bring the lens out and things really, which is a bit of a shame. So I'd always opt for a prime lens before a zoom lens. That's obviously what you've got what you've got at hand and things really. Next decision really is in the technical, as far as what are you going to be using. Are you using daylight, or are you using LED, or are you using flash? I really need more of a consistency of light source. So at the beginning of the day to the end of the day, the light quality is going to be the same, and I'm not having to actually change the technical on camera to actually accommodate the lighting conditions as they change through. Slightly different if you're working on location in the middle of the summer. You can shoot probably in one location for 2 or 3 hours without any real kind of change, except if you're in a big sunspot with it and things really. And you can see here there's some light kind of coming through. If I just put it on a live view again, you can see there's kind of shadows coming through here from just behind me, and that will obviously change during the course of the day. And obviously what we don't want to do is have that to change. We want it to pretty much stay the consistent level. So for me, I'm using Studio Flash. On the back end of this, I've got an Elinchrom ELC Pro 500. That gives me enough power to be able to work at a distance with a double diffuse softbox. In this case, I'm using a Photix Round 105. This gives 2 layers of diffusion as well, so a very, very soft light. I've also got diffusion panels if I need to put something else in the way. But as I said, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., I want to be able to shoot the same consistency of light. That's absolutely key. And then, as far as how to fire the flash, these are linked together. So this is the Elinchrom kind of little trigger that is on the hot shoe that then tells this flash to fire when I take the photograph. A little bit of a note: if you're using the live view mode, basically when you take the photograph, some cameras it turns the hot shoe into a cold shoe, so it doesn't actually tell it to fire. So while we're staying on the lighting, we're using just a one light setup today because it is an introduction into lay flat, as it were. And really what you want to be having is loads of little bits of card or reflective surfaces around so they can act as secondary or third points of light source. Specifically when the light is coming in from behind, like it is here. Let me put it into live view for you. Once I start to kind of put this little bit of a card in place, it starts to actually bring more of the detail alive. Now, if I replace that white card, so if I just kind of show you on camera for a minute, this is the kind of the simple foam, the foam core, loads of different sizes, and I've got the same kind of foam core now covered in aluminium foil. So when we start to go back, let's go back into the live view again here. So you can see it without any kind of reflectancy. If I bring the white reflector in here, you'll see the detail lift here and here and here, but more nearest to this muffin here, of course. And then if I basically just bring the silver one in place, that will create even a brighter lift, especially when we're using the likes of a hard light source. More of the light is going to be coming in together. So let's just kind of show you the difference quickly in that as far as a flash. So this would be without any reflector at all. So in other words, just the one light source. Then this is the white reflector. And you can see on the bottom right-hand side how it lifts that fully. And then, of course, if we use the silver one, that is really going to pop a huge amount of light in, and it'll also add a little bit of pattern to the background floor. So you watch out for that as well. And so, again, you might find that you're going to use a silver, but it's way offset, and it's just designed to actually throw in a little bit more light, but from a different angle. So remember, card reflectancy is all about bouncing light to kind of create the different look and feel to the photograph that you want. So these little bits of card are brilliant. Pretty much whenever I travel to a kitchen, I recover my foil ones with theirs. Saves on kind of going through a huge amount of foil, and I make sure I recover it before I leave their kitchens, or before I leave the shoot, because basically it's all kind of contained in my shooting bag that I can just basically pick up and kind of go to any location with. I do use these little clamps. I've been using them for a long time now, in fact, but it just allows me to basically put the reflector down in any position and basically at any height as well. So because they've got this lovely little bit of a rubber end to the clamp and things that grips any surface really, really well, so it's quickly kind of realigned and replaced and things ready. While we're speaking about reflectant surfaces, invest into or find some old kind of thickish card. Doesn't have to be very, very thick, but the likes of a piece of paper, A4, just bent in two, instantly creates a bit of a V-flat. Yeah, and if you buy the likes of a silver card as well, you can replace it with a reflectant, a higher reflectancy surface. Remember, with the V-flats, they can work in reverse. Yeah, so if you don't want as much, but you just want a little bit, and you want to change the angle, a little bit more of a natural ambience in the reflectancy of light, then you can use the V-flat in reverse. So in other words, instead of kind of turning the two panels towards the product, you can turn the two panels away from the product, a bit like a wing kind of thing with it. So again, invest into some kind of cheap card as well with it and things to kind of get the job done. As far as kind of other things are concerned, as he drops things on the floor, you know, even kind of boxes and trays and lids. This is from a set of curtains, in fact, which I absolutely love. Let me just take it back off live view a minute. Oh, let me take it back. So this is just a simple, from a curtain set we bought, but instantly, kind of, we got the green box has changed it, but you can start to see now, because this is this higher lip here, this is starting to actually create shadow within the image. Now that can be an interesting kind of design as well, as long as you're aware of what things and shadows are going to be created. Let me just do that again. So you can start to see how kind of color starts to work in the lay flat as well, just by kind of creating together. But you just want to avoid that shadow. If you do have some kind of boxes, try and have the ability to remove the sides. You can buy some really cheap kind of box crates from the likes of IKEA, and you can buy these in sets as well. But if you're going to be photographing with a lot of boxes, I would definitely change the, instead of it fixed in with like a staple nail, I would take these off and replace it with like Velcro, so you can kind of pull off the sides and everything else, as long as it's not going to be in the main shot, because you will see the Velcro from above, of course. But yeah, so whatever kind of things you've got at hand, not only for reflectancies, we even have, oh, I should say, I even steal some of the little silver trays at times that the chefs bring things out on. The great things about this, that they can be bent in shape, and they can be used as reflectors, they can be used as bouncers. And again, as I said, an entry level into food photography isn't going to cost you a huge amount of money. And that's pretty much it. As far as the prime lens, as I said, I prefer that so we don't actually change it. As far as the exposure is concerned, most of the time, if I'm using the macro lens, I'm going to be wanting to work at around about f/16 if I want depth through the photograph. If it's a lay flat like we are here, probably f4, 5, 6, 8 is going to be enough. f4 would be for a dramatic fall off to really kind of drop the focus out straight away. Otherwise, it's really down to you. So, in other words, if I just bring in the likes of that's a plant pot, yeah, upside down, just check it is. Let's focus in on that one. And let's just light that, just a little bit of that muffin there on that top. Obviously, it's going to throw shadow, but straight away you can see how it has come up in its height. If I quickly swap that now to a 100mm macro, obviously I might have to move my focus position on camera. Let me just see what it's like a minute. That's pretty good. And I'm just going to move in the muffins below. Here we go. So that's my f4. So you can see straight away that's going to really drastically drop all the actual muffins out of focus. Let me just add a little bit of reflected light. You can see I'm holding it by hand. Once you're kind of used to where things are going to go and you stand in the same place, you can kind of start to kind of move it. If I want to increase the depth of field, we need to obviously change it to at least, I would say, from f4 to f8 then. So I'm just going to, on the trigger, I can increase this power of the flash. So I'm just going to go 20 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Beep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Beep. Okay. Then I change my working aperture to f8. Just do that same thing again. Taking the photograph. Another way to add the depth of field, of course, without kind of increasing your flash or in case you run out of power, is play the ISO game. So I'm just going to increase my ISO to 400 now. That gives me from 100 ISO to 400 ISO. That gives me another full 2 stops. So now, of course, because the macro lens is in its design needs more depth of field, you can start to see we're getting more and more detail in the muffin below. And then quickly, of course, remember, we can work with that ISO game in exactly the same way. So let's take the ISO back down to 100 again. Then basically change my aperture back to f8. Remember, it's 2 stops I just changed on the physical camera technology. So we can see we're back then for the slightly out of focus lighting. And then if we just add that reflector back in again, you can see the difference, how much that does make a lift to the whole product. But of course, remember, in the technology front, we increase this by two stops. We increase the aperture by 2 stops. So if I want to work in reverse, now I just go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10 tenths of a stop, the beep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's again 10 tenths of a stop, as it were. So that gives me two stops. Change that back down to the F4, and now we should have a perfectly sharp muffin on the top and an out of focus muffin below. Great, so I hope you've enjoyed that little bit of an introduction into the world of food photography and specifically the lay flat. Remember, as far as the backgrounds are concerned, we can pretty much change this kind of look and feel from a summer light and bright to the likes of a kind of a winter glamour. Looks pretty good. So that's the kind of the difference there. Making sure your focus is in the right place, of course. Let me just switch it back off live view. Pop our reflectors in. Lighten this just 1. And then basically we're back into a little bit more of a Christmassy, warm mode and things. And as far as kind of color palettes are concerned, you're either going to use a color palette in the same tone, that's what you're seeing now, or you're going to use the likes of a clashing color, and that's really just down to yourself. So we could instantly use a red background now and basically give it a different kind of color shock, as it were. So let's not talk about it, let's do it, shall we? Just to give you a visual of how that can change. Remember, these are just the papers, so they have a slight reflectancy. As far as the edges of the photograph is concerned, I like things to disappear off the edge. It kind of almost feels like you're just looking at a much bigger set or a much bigger kind of look and feel. So let's just kind of bring those in. As I said, we're using a bit of a kind of the likes of a Polaroid to begin with. Let's kind of almost bring those in, but bring it around the side. Let's use the silver to really pop in some light now. And that will kind of just really add that bit of color shock, as I said. So you can see what I mean. You might be given a product and you need to create a variety. And we haven't even used props yet, okay? But just by kind of giving ourselves different backgrounds will give us a different look and feel. Hope you've enjoyed this film. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.